This beam may be pressure treated, but I'm protecting it anyway, and here's why. Here's a great example of the inside of this beam, and this is what the outside of the beam looked like. Not quite as bad because it had fascia on it, but you get the idea when you look up here and you can see all these drip lines. And this is really green because a lot of mildew and moss have attached to this. Once this is cleaned, you really won't have to clean it again because the water is not gonna get contained or sit up against the beam. And that's what's gonna protect that beam for the future so that it no longer has issues, especially if we're using a glue-lam like this. It's 16.5 inches. These are very expensive. They're $30, $40 a running foot. This is a 24 footer. So you do the math on that, it's almost $1,000 for this beam. And to replace it, we'd have to tear the whole deck down. So we want to keep the longevity of this material. If you put wood in the wrong environment, regardless if it's pressure treated or not, it may be resistant to decay, but it's not a bulletproof situation. So we always protect our framing this way. We're reusing the frame on this deck, and it's hard to tell if this beam has been pressure treated or not. Usually there's a stamp on the top of the beam, but because this beam has already been here and they installed decking right on top of it without any protection, it got really dark and black and it's starting to corrode and decay. So we can't tell if there's any stamp saying pressure treated or not. So because of that reason, we feel that this beam may not be pressure treated, which when you're installing a non-pressure treated beam in an exterior environment, you gotta make sure that it is protected with waterproof membrane tape anywhere that you're wrapping the beam or any wood to beam contact. This did not have that originally. You can see that we've added this waterproof membrane tape called G-tape to the side and to the top of the beam. Once that's completed, then we will also add another piece of waterproof bladder to keep the moisture away from this edge of the beam. The first place this beam would rot would be right on top because the water is sitting underneath the decking. This deck had a fascia board like this, and then this board was over the top of it, but the water still curled underneath and got in between the decking and the beam. And we've actually taken a grinder and we've ground all the screws down and we've sanded a little bit of the top of the beam. We're trying to see if we could find that stamp. And we just couldn't seem to find the stamp anywhere on this beam at all. So we went ahead and protected it because we are going to put new decking down on the top and new fascia to the side. So to do that, we have to keep the water off of it and keep it draining away from the beam. Moisture is gonna escape any way it can. So as long as we're not wrapping the entire product or the entire beam in tape, the moisture will get out of the beam when the sun comes and hits it. It's gonna find a way to escape. A lot of times it wants to go up, but if it can't get out through the tape, it's still gonna find its way out. Let me just put this back down. It's very sticky still, so it'll probably still stick to this wood even though it's slightly wet. If we have to, we can always use some staples or something to hold it down, and then we can go back and retape this corner. Once that's done, then it's ready for the bladder. Even in our pressure treated builds with a standard drop beam where the joists go over the top of the beam, we'll still tape the tops of the beams. With all these screw holes in this beam, you can see that the water finds a way down into the core of the beam, and that's where it starts to rot. You see right here, there's 4 holes. That tells me this is where a post was for the railing. It was a surface mounted post in aluminum and glass, and there was no protection between the beam and the bottom of the decking. So when they drilled the holes and installed the fasteners, they're just right through the decking, right into the beam, and that's 4 different places where water can penetrate and cause corrosion. So now, once we tape this, and we put this over the top of it like so, and then we install our decking on top of that, when we put our fasteners through, this is self-sealing. So it's gonna help keep the moisture out of the holes. So what this is doing, it's protecting the old holes from absorbing more moisture, and then it's allowing a new seal for the new fasteners that go in to seal up against the tape. That's my philosophy. If you don't agree, that's fine, but we just feel like we have to do our best to try and protect this for many years to come. So what I have here is a waterproof bladder. This is EPDM pond liner. It's made by Goodyear. It's available at most like commercial landscape supply houses, a pond place or something like that. I buy this in a big 1,000 square foot roll. It's 20 feet wide by 100 feet long. I think it's about 2,000 square feet on this roll. The stuff can get heavy. You can't just muscle it around with one guy, because when you buy it completely in a roll, you grab it with a forklift, pick it up, and you move it around. I only need like so wide. So if the beam's 6 inches and I want 4 inches of overhang past the beam, I need about a 10-inch path or 10-inch width of material. So this piece of material, this bladder, is folded twice. That's why it comes on a 5-foot wide roll, because it's actually 20 feet wide, and I've cut this 5-foot section. So I'm just going to cut 10 inches off of here, but I'm cutting through 4 layers, which is a little tough. That's why I have some industrial scissors. And then I'll be able to take that, and then I'll have a 20-foot long piece that I can install up on the top of this. So we're just gonna go ahead and say, okay, if I want 10 inches, I probably could go 12 inches if I really wanted to. Let's do that. I'd still get 5 pieces, which gives me 100 feet. I don't need 100 feet. I only need like 60 feet of this total for all 3 decks that we're doing, or the one main deck plus the upper one. So I'm just gonna cut a 12-inch wide piece, and I can kind of see there's a fold right here. So I'm just gonna kind of follow this line with my scissors. There we go. Let's take this upstairs and go ahead and install it on the outside edge of this beam. What's gonna happen now, like I said, is we're going to put this right along the edge of this beam. So once we tack this down, there's gonna be a deck board right here, and then there's a gap between the deck boards, right? So the water's gonna drip right here. So instead of it rolling over and running down the side of the beam, it's gotta carry 6 inches past the beam and then drop. So that's what's gonna keep the beam dry for the future and make sure that it doesn't get wet or get full of contamination or rot or decay. I'm gonna use this carbon fiber DeWalt hand stapler just to staple this down. And then when we're finished with all this and we're done with our blocking and all that other stuff, then we'll come back and tape everything off for our final edge. Like I might even tape the edge of this just to make sure the water can't continue down here. But anyway, so this is real easy. You don't have to pepper this full of staples, because remember, you're putting a deck board on here. There's rail posts and all kinds of stuff going through here. This is just to kind of hold it down. This is what I found to be a really efficient and effective way, and not super expensive. And you just sit here and you roll this out, and it's okay. It's good to have like just a little bit of a dip. Water's gonna find the path of least resistance. So all the water's gonna converge right to here and then run right off the edge of this. And then this gets protected. This beam will no longer be in jeopardy of rotting or decay. Don't take this the wrong way, anyone, but I don't understand why people wouldn't have done this to begin with. So it's kind of good that we took all the deck boards off, and even though we're keeping the decking on the upper deck, we're removing the first 2 pieces, and we're gonna do this exact same treatment to the beam just to protect it for future. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe. Have a great day.